We all want to find true love. But what about when it goes wrong? How can we right things? We really need to have an understanding of how this puzzle works. So, there is a common pattern, and if we can understand the pattern through which we all go through, then we can move forward from this and understand, right, if this is the pattern we go through, I can reverse this somewhat and overcome it. So we start out where things are good. We're on the same page. We have something special. We have this magical relationship. We often feel like this at the beginning. Otherwise, we wouldn't go to the depth we go to before and end up coming around to having to figure this out. Frustrations are always going to build. We're different people. We can't be the same person. It's going to be hard. So, if frustrations build, we're going to get to the point where we feel we need to have to say something. Yes, I know some of you will say, oh, I don't like to create trouble or confrontation, so I will just leave things and not say anything. That's fine, but that will bubble and boil until the point where we'll have to say something. So it doesn't matter if this happens in this order or later, but it's always going to be there at some point. When we do say, this is bothering me, I need to do something about this, we need to talk about it, we need to find a solution, then the other person is going to defend themselves. This is normal. It's a human self-defense mechanism. And if I say something's not right, we need to deal with it, and my partner says, oh, but I think I'm doing the right thing, they're defending themselves, because if they're doing what they're doing, for some reason they think it is the right thing to do. So they will bring up the past, and then you may bring up the past to try to justify your position. This is how things begin to escalate. It's often at this point that we try to avoid a fight. We're thinking back to here. We're thinking back, in fact, to everything that has tied us together. That through all of these hardships, we have a history, and we don't want this resentment to tear us apart. We want to come back together and make it work. But if we avoid these fights and end up cycling back to the point where the frustration builds and having to say something and defending the self and bringing up the past, then things escalate. And once they escalate, all we can really do is pull away. You don't get to a solution. Once things become that heated that we bring up the past and we might say things we regret, then we're going to have to step away, and we're going to feel guilty about that. And we're going to try and smooth things over and get back to the beginning again. This cycle around and around is so common, and it is based on this whole concept that things should just be great. It should be our fairy tale. But is that realistic? In a mature relationship, shouldn't we recognize that we are going around this cycle and work together as a team, knowing that it takes two people to have an argument, just as it takes two people to be in a relationship? That's why it's called relating to one another. So therefore, if we can start to understand that a relationship is about having a mature perspective that all of these things are going to happen and trying to find a way to resolve them, then we need to acknowledge that, yes, we're always going to do some of these things, but let's try to find a way that within your own relationship, we can seek for the exceptions to the rule where you have been able to do the opposite to these things, and look for, if this is what goes wrong, what's the opposite we could do to that? What's some things that people we know do that could work for us? What are some things we could explore and try out? What's the advice we would give to our friends about all of this? So now, on the flip side, we begin with having an overview and understanding that, okay, we need to work as a team and work on long-term goals together, and understand that these goals can't always be met, so we need to have higher order values, that we value this and that to achieve together, so that we are on the same page and can move forward together. This is going to take a while, because relationships are a complicated puzzle, and if you've got two people that are always going to be different. And so we can start with number one in acknowledging that rather than just cruising along and everything being fine, accepting that we both have strengths and weaknesses and trying to meet those and to meet each other's needs. Rather than those frustrations building, we can weigh up the need to confront our partner. Is this something I need to work on? And if so, then we can start to think about how we can say it carefully, to be curious and not critical. We can seek to forgive the other person as we ask, so as to ask in such a way as to promote understanding and discussion rather than saying, you always do this. This is so wrong. Finding something like, I've noticed this, and even if you are 100% sure you are right, we can say, I've noticed this and maybe I'm wrong, but what do you think? Is there something we need to do about this? It really changes the table. Instead of saying, I'm laying my cards on the table, this is what's happening, it needs to change. It's about saying, yeah, I know it takes two to tango. I know we've been around this cycle before. Do you have some solutions? And allowing your partner to be human and make mistakes, and allowing them to have the opportunity to discuss this with you and look for a solution, rather than them jumping into feeling criticized and going back to the same old cycle. Yes, this is really hard. So we talk about connect before correct. Rather than falling into defensiveness, if you bring it up and things go sour, then, we might have a plan and say, oh, hey, honey, this isn't going so well. Let's take a moment out. I'll go and clean the bathroom and take the bin out. And then later on tonight, after the kids go to bed, we can sit down, have a game of Uno, and drink a cup of peppermint tea. And then we can talk about what we can do together and start to move towards a solution, so that we have a chance to connect before correct. That is, if I was to come home and say, hey, these things are not working as soon as I walk through the door, that's terrible. And I'm not buttering my partner up to say, oh, hey, sit down, let's do something nice, and now I'm going to knock you down. No, it's about saying, yeah, we do have something special, and let's appreciate that and still have something special and also be able to work through things. So on the other side, some of the main things that I was talking about were criticism, defensiveness, the contempt in putting ourselves above the other person, saying, no, I'm always right, you're wrong, the past is always like this, and stonewalling, ignoring the other person. On this side, we're looking at the opposite of these things. Those four things on the other side that I was talking to were from Gottman's theory, and this is from the Taylor Cummings doctors. You can see a great TED talk by them to explain these four habits of successful relationships, being curious, not critical, connect before correct, careful, not crushing, and ask, don't assume. So careful, not crushing is about that we're knowing that when we say this, you've already brought it up, you've tried to find a nice space to enjoy some time together and get back to it. It's really helpful to have a pre-planned idea of what you can do when things become too heated so that you can vent. And I've got a nice acronym for that. Vent you can think of as V for very strong emotions, which evidently need dealing with. And E for the need to exercise or release that energy. And N for notate. If we discuss something with someone, it makes sense of those scattered, wild thoughts in our mind. Or if we write them down, it also helps to draw them out and put them into context, as opposed to them just floating around in our head and causing a nightmare. And these things can go backwards and forwards. That if I notice very strong emotions and I need to release the energy to vent that and then notate it, I might have to go backwards and forwards with some vigorous exercise or some singing or some drawing or music, so as to release that energy and do some notation and come back to it and toss it around. And it's helpful in this moment to think about that we don't want to be going off and talking to someone else about our relationship problems constantly. We want to keep it within the relationship as much as possible. Sometimes we need to go out for a little bit here and there, but But the point is that to have a happy, strong relationship, we should be spending an hour a day with our partner. So if you're starting to get to more than an hour a week with someone else, it's starting to become an emotional affair. So the venting is about finding a method to work through these things either with your partner to notate it and then come back to turning it into a solution. And a solution, we have to be really careful about the way we approach it so as not to be crushing. And I recommend that if you can take these notations of all these random thoughts and turn them into something sensible, to turn them into the solution being something which is brief, polite, and factual. That's short and courteous and objective, factual. So taking out some of the emotion and making it very simple, then we are being more careful and not crushing our partner because we're just being realistic and trying to find a solution. That is so long as we are asking and not assuming. If I'm saying, look, I saw this and this, so I know this must have happened. You might be 110% correct. That's fine. But if we are assuming, we are making an ASS out of you and me. So we really, and it's just a confrontational way of speaking, even if we are correct. If I say, look, could this be what's happening? I might be 100% sure I'm right, but could this be what's happening? Then I'm asking, not assuming, and it opens the environment to discuss these things rather than pull it apart. And then we can really get to a point of saying, yes, we've talked about and explored some different possibilities. Let's practice putting this into place and practice some acceptance that things are a struggle, brainstorm solutions, try them out, and continue to base our relationship on the fact that we're a team, knowing that neither of us are perfect, and knowing that we need to support one another to achieve these things so that we can have that perfect love.